Hey guys, welcome to our first build video for a Blade Runner 3D printed model kit. The Blade Runner Blaster. A lot of guys like these. Not a lot of people print these out because these take a lot of parts and a lot of time to print, and some of the parts are actually pretty difficult to print according to our friend that we got it from. They do a lot of print form in Chicago, so we bought this kit from them, and we'll put the order link later. You can see the supports can come off pretty easily. First part you'll see is all the supports that's on the material, on the parts, and they usually come right off. And we just kind of go through all the parts, kind of see what they're like. Oh, nice texture. A lot of people use this and then reverse cast these. If you don't know how to do casting or reverse casting, you can actually make a pretty cool acrylic pieces for these. And this is the inner frame for the receiver. Yep, again, there's a lot of supports on these on these parts, so you gotta remove them pretty easily. The barrel, you can remove that. Oh, looks nice. It's still got the layer lines. This is due to the fact that it's on an FDM printer. No matter what, you're gonna get layer lines. These are quick prints, so they're actually pretty good for quick prints. I'm glad these came out. It took a little time, but we got them, and now we're going to build them. So we're going to separate these out, and let's see how it goes. Alright, we're just looking through all the parts now. So we separated it out, laid it out on a table, kind of see what's going on. Got the trigger, little covering piece. This is actually a public kit file that you can actually download and print it yourself if you have your own 3D printers, but that came out pretty good with all the bolts and everything. Wow, they actually came up with that. Okay, now here's the shaft that joins the chamber. So that would probably be a very easy part to break, so you got to be careful with that. Also, again, the barrel, the bottom part of the barrel actually is pretty fragile too, so you gotta be careful with that when you're removing the part. And let's see what else. Oh, okay. Yep. Lower frame, upper frame, main grip frame. Now, these supposed to fit together, and since this is done on an FDM printer, they do shrink, so most of the time parts like this won't fit together. You have to grind it or kind of sand away some of the material in order for it to fit. Again, it's the nature of the 3D printer. 3D printing is not 100% precise, even on a higher end model. So yeah, you do need to fit it a little bit later on. Later on we'll just file it down, chip away some of the pieces to make it fit. Should be okay. Again, a lot of materials you gotta remove. Most of us seasoned builders for model kits. I mean, we used to work with like the old vinyl model kits, and those things never fit. So we used to have to boil put the parts over steam and form it. So we'll work on that later. All right. That's the upper slide. and it's pretty good detail. We're going to start removing some of the parts now, some of the supports, so you can see that these come off pretty easily with just either your hand or just use a wire cutter. Should work just fine. Just kind of move the edges. Later you can sand it down. Now that part, the vertical supports, you can move pretty easily. Comes right off. Again, on that part you can move it pretty quickly. Easily. It just comes right off. See that? Remove the inside of it using a needle nose plier so the inner supports will come right off. Now you can just clean it off a little bit more with like a Twizzler or tweezer or sandpaper to smooth it out a little bit. Plastic's pretty soft. These are PLA based prints. So they're like soft plastic, kind of hard. So all the parts can be removed easily. And just kind of pull some of the excess off. And then you can see you got the hole detail for one of the bolts, so you could just use your needle plier, your wire cutter. Just kind of go in there and twist it right off, and it comes right off easily. Most of the supports will come off pretty easily. Move this side, move that, and that comes right off. Just kind of twist it. Okay, so this is what we have. Details are good. Just have to do some sanding later. Clean off on the inside a little bit more. So you're just going to go through each part one by one, clean it off. It'll probably take about maybe 30 minutes to do all the parts. Just get the excess material off. Now we'll do the actual round chambers, magazines, or yep. So those just come right off. Vertical supports will snap right off. Just kind of clear off the edges there. Clean off little by little. Just make sure that the edges are clean later on. We'll sand it down to make it a little bit nicer to fit. Yep. Just clean up some of the edges there. Everything looks good. The detail looks really good on this kit, actually. Even being a fast print kit, it's actually pretty nice. Okay, let's see. Okay, so here's the hard part. Now, these will snap right off, these bottom base here, and I think one of the parts already came off of it, but don't worry about it, you can just glue it right back. You see that part right there? It kind of broke off, but it's okay. You just kind of take that off. Make sure you save the pieces. Then you put it together, glue it back later. Don't worry about it. So you just kind of make sure that you take the parts off, and make sure you keep all the parts that broke off that you think you'll need. Keep it together. And later on you can just super glue it back. No issue. Okay, and then now we have the charging chamber right there. Okay, so now you can see the corrugated section here is what usually is the supports. So these vertical supports will just come right off. You just have to get the bottom piece off, and you can see them coming off now. Just kind of twist it, and see, it pulls right off nice and easy. And then you'll review all the details that's underneath it, so you can see that. Now the reason for this is that in the printing process, it's actually printed layer by layer, so you have any overhang or like a 90-degree angle on your part. It needs to build supports to be able to support that area when it's printed. So that's why you have these supports down here. Now the thing with most 3D printed kits that you do have to go through all these work yourself. The printers, they don't have the time to remove the parts for you. It's part of the process that you have to do yourself. I mean, with the price that we pay for this is actually pretty good already. So you can see that. Detail's nice, even with the supports removed, it's actually pretty nice. And again, we'll put the order link that we order from for you guys to share later. Okay, that's the cover doors, so you can see that. Just kind of remove that part. Now there's a little part here, a little support for the little details. Sometimes the printer will try to print small details, but they will also add in supports, so you gotta remove those. And they usually don't come right off like that. Now you can see the little notch there. Yep. We're gonna kind of clean them off one by one. So we're gonna go through all these one by one and start cleaning them off. We'll come back after we finish all this. It'll take some time. Okay, so now we have all the parts cleaned up a bit. We removed all the support material, most of it. You can see some of the parts are actually broke when we try to do it, but we will glue them back. Detail-wise, it's pretty good, pretty decent. We kind of do a close inspection of the parts. They look good. Pretty solid. No soft prints or anything like that. Some of the edges we need to clean off a bit later when we start assembling with an X-Acto knife or a hobby knife. So that's actually okay. Detail-wise is good. Now here's one of the pieces that we broke when we tried to take the parts off, but it's okay. We just glue it back later. We taped it with blue tape to the main part so that later on we can glue it back so we don't lose it. Okay, now also take a look at some of the other pieces here. They look fine. Oh, this one little support there in the area there, so we need to remove that. So later on we need to add one of the bolt pieces in there. Okay, and then also these inner supports that we need to remove. These are a little bit harder. Probably we'll go in with a tweezer later to remove that. Well, we'll remove some more. But you can see all the parts are laid out, so you can see them without the supports there. They look pretty good. I mean, considering that we only pay like less than $45 for this, so it's actually pretty good. Okay, going with a needle nose plier, try to get it off a little bit. It's alright. And clean off some of the edges. And you can see we leave that part intact. We didn't remove the support yet because we're going to use it later so they don't spread all over the place. And the mag chamber is all cleaned up. Looks nice. We'll probably go in with a little bit more cleaning on the edges. There. Just kind of clip it off a little bit here and there. So that's it. Now let's start assembly. Alright, so the instructions on PDF format, so we kind of follow the instruction a little bit, but you can modify it. You have to choose now if you're going to move the trigger or not, or you're going to just make it into a solid piece of prop. with non-movable parts. I understand that a lot of conventions now these days, they don't allow movable prop parts. So, with that said, we're going to choose to make it a non-movable part. Then also these parts right here, these tools, they're great for enlarging your holes on your models later with a small drill or a circular file. I'll show you how to do that. So we have the trigger. The trigger won't fit into that little peg there because the FDM printer issues. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a circular file to clean it up a little bit here. Just kind of loosen it up a little bit so the drill bit can go in with a very little light pressure. We can kind of just twist it a little bit here, slight twisting, just kind of going on it back and forth. Don't need to use a lot of force because you might break it. Tighten this bit up a bit. Just kind of use a little bit of going back and forth, clean it up a little bit more, and enlarging it slowly. So that you can get a nice little enlargement on that area without breaking the piece. And it's going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and it should go in pretty soon. And we're going to the other side to clean it off the other debris. And it's good. Alright. Now, clean it up a little bit more with a circular file. Everything's a little small, so your tool has to be a little bit smaller. So a good set of small drill bit and a small file, circular file will do. You can find those on most hardware shops. Okay, and then now this will go right in. You can see it fits perfectly. Now it moves smoothly in and out. Later on we'll super glue all this down. Because we don't want the trigger to move. It's going to be a solid prop. Also for the time being, this kit is a fully movable parts kit, but it does take a lot more time to make everything fit and move. So we're going to make it more into a solid piece. Okay, now we need to glue the barrel on. So we're going to, because this is more of a structurally important area, we need to use a 2-part epoxy, so we're going to do that. Okay, part A epoxy, part B epoxy. So we're going to mix it together and then glue that piece on there. Now this is the whole entire frame for the blaster, so it's critical that between these two parts you need to add in a more heavy-duty epoxy. Also, do read the instruction in PDF. If you don't have the instructions when you buy the kit, usually you just message them and they'll send you the PDF files right away, or you can watch this video while we do it. Just get that open there. Stupid child lock. There we go. Okay. Now that's one. Get the other one open. Alright. Put that on there. Okay. There we go. We got it in. Come on, tube. Squeeze tube, squeeze tube. Alright, there we go. here's a rule: never buy from the dollar store. These cheaper epoxies. Get the real nice tube ones. Alright, so we got 2 parts there. There we go. A little bit more. Okay. Now, mix it with a little plastic knife or one of those any cheap plastic pieces, something hard yet flexible. Just kind of give it a quick mix there. Keep mixing, keep mixing. Okay, now you gotta wait for the consistency to be alright. Okay, that looks good. Okay. Alright, so we will now apply it, both sides, the model onto the barrel end there. And then also onto the main receiver frame. Alright, get a little there. Sorry if I'm doing this out of the camera frame. There we go. Get that on there. So you can see applied it all over the place around that joint area. Now you can see it. Just gotta hold it up a little bit. Oh, let me get it on the frame here. Sorry. There we go. Just hold it together like that. And just leave it. If you get it on your hand, just kind of wash it off with soap. They do irritate the skin, so try to get it off if you get in contact with it as soon as you can. It does harden pretty quick depending on the epoxy that you use. Usually about a few minutes to a couple hours, depending on what you're trying to get. Personally, we like the Gorilla Glue ones, but in a pinch, we kind of got this cheap one. Okay, so we're going to let that sit for a bit, let it rest, blow on it a little bit. Okay, now we're going to move on to, once it's hardened, we'll move on to the receiver panel assembly. Okay, so now we have put up our receiver assembly. The panels for each side, left and right, for the receiver, we mount those on. Again, we make the hole a little bit bigger, and then we use super glue this time. Clamp it down with a clamp and masking tape to hold it in place while the glue sets. Some of the glues actually dries instantly, but most you need to hold it for a bit. Now we're going to do the other part. This part will go right on the other side. There's a left and right piece for it. Again, the instruction will explain to you how they're supposed to go together on each side. Okay, now the critical part is that we need to, both sides are mounted, clamps removed. Now we need to kind of slim down some of the material, remove some of the material so that it'll be able to fit onto the frame. So we're going to do that using a Dremel, okay, on an edge, or you can just use a wire cutter to cut away the pieces. The plastic is very soft, it's very easy to remove. Again, some of these areas that we smoothed out already with a Dremel, and then we also go in with the nail cutter or wire cutter to clean up the pieces, so kind of use a little Dremel there to smooth it evenly. Now, the thing is to make it fit into the handle frame. So this is also the reason, like, FDM 3D printing is mostly used for shape checking and just kind of form check for product designers and stuff like that. It's not meant to be like precise model. You can do it in precise settings when you do it, but also because of the shape and the material. And material does shrink. So usually the tolerance for FDM printers is about 1 millimeters or less. So sometimes you just have to work with it. So these kind of kits, you have to somewhat shave away some of the materials so you'll make it fit. Let's take a look, see if we're good at it. Ooh, nice. It's a tight little fit, but it does go in nicely. So I just kind of force it in a little bit. There we go. Now, looks like the handle frame is now attached to the main receiver frame, so we're almost there. Good assembly process right now. It's good. Everything's nice, nicely detailed. Alright. Okay, now we're going to be looking at it after the final assembly and glue down. We added in the little revolver latch there. Okay, just making sure the trigger guard is assembled and put in. Again, we have to remove some material to make that fit, but fit nicely. Okay, so later on we're going to bolt that in there. So we're going to leave it loose for now. Now we'll move on to the cocking lever handle. So all these little pegs would go in. So they go in on top of each other. And it's connected with, just like that, slides right in. Okay. And then we'll super glue it in on both sides. Just gonna make sure it goes in the right way. Right there. Okay, next we will be adding this spacer piece that goes in. Again, this kit, you can make it into everything movable, so the cocking lever and everything will move, trigger will move, magazine will slide out. You could do that, but we're not going to do that here. We're going to try to glue everything down. Number one thing is that these material are a bit fragile, so we try to make everything move all the time, but it will break over time. So we prefer to make it more of a solid model kit. Okay, then we put that in there, just slide right in. Okay, that's one piece there. And then the actual cocking handle, we're just going to make sure it's the right side facing forward, flat side is facing forward. And there you go. Also, because this is like an open source file, protocol file, there's actually quite a few people that redid some of the model files to give it a more of an upgrade kit for these. And you can, if you have a 3D printer yourself, you can download it and print it yourself. But some of these guys do sell the kits for it. For example, there's a guy that does all the sliding details and everything, improvements for these kits. Also, try not to get super glue on your hand. Okay, then we're just going to let it set. Butterfinger, sliding butterfinger. Yeah, the glue will take a while to set, so we kind of just have to hold it in place for a bit. Yeah. Unfortunately, we have to do try to use a clamp or something to hold it, or just kind of leave the gravity to hold it down. Make sure it stays there for a bit. Try using a clip to make it stand, see if it works. Nah, I'm just gonna let gravity take shape, let it set. You can get a faster super glue, but the one that we have right now takes at least a couple minutes to set. Also, you can use the Gorilla White glue if you're up to it, but that would take a longer time to set. Those things would need you actually need a lot of support for that kind of glue, but once it's glued in there, it's nice. Okay, now let it set somewhere. I think it's pretty stable now, and it should be okay. Okay. Alright. Now this piece is the base of the handle. We're going to leave this not assembled yet because we're going to paint them separately and then mount it on. So we just got to make sure that actually level. So that's actually pretty okay. That's leveled. So that was set right there. We're actually going to get a couple metal screws to bolt in there. We're not going to use these to bolt it in. But we will use a metal screw to bolt that in there. Okay, now we're going to move up to the upper slide assembly. We can see all the details there now. Alright, so these comes in about 3 or 4 pieces all together. Just got to slide it in. One of the pieces did break off when we were trying to clean it, but we'll put that in there later. So we slide in there like that, and then the rest of the upper slide will go over that piece, the cocking lever. So you gotta kind of do it all in one shot, and glue everything on top of it. So we'll get right over to that. So something like that. Alright, now we move on to the actual mechanism for the chamber rounds magazine and cover. You can see that we removed the center peg because this is going to be a non-movable model, so we're going to remove that what we don't need and then just kind of glue it down. Okay. So we remove that center peg there. Just kind of snap it off there. And then now we're going to glue this piece around there. Like that. And it'll go right in. So we're going to super glue the whole entire piece together, and then it'll drop right in there. Alright, now take out the super glue. So we're going to start gluing the chamber mag right in there. We're going to glue there. Back up, and we're going to take our chamber round, put it right in there, hold it for a while, to sit. Gonna inspect the detail, make sure it's centered. Everything's good. Everything's solid. Alright, now you see that the upper slide has been assembled, put in. We also put in the covers for it. Again, we had to make some adjustments on the materials, cut away some material to make it slide. The cocking handle does move a bit, so it does move okay. Alright, the mag's already inside. Revolver mag is already chamber already inside with the cover on. Everything is glued down. So this side came out pretty nice now. Now we just have to mount the under mag. Was it under electronics? Not so sure. So we're gonna move all that part. All this part fit together. You do have to do a little bit of material removal, but it should fit right in there. Again, just sits right there. And we have glued everything in place. Alright, now don't forget the circular cylinder up front, and then also the details to be added in. The little latches, and then the sight bar to be mounted on. So now it's pretty good to go. Make sure all the details are added. Next thing is we just have to add in some of the bolt details, the screws that has to be put on the frame and the body. Now these pieces we're going to paint those separately, so those we're not going to assemble it right on. So we're going to paint those all together and then put them on, assemble in the final assembly after it's painted. Just gotta make sure that looks okay, everything's pretty solid. Now we gotta put these pieces into the details for the upper frame. So those things can be easily glued in and we're good to go. So the details are now in. So you can see all the screws and bolts has been added on. Now we just had to make sure that we're going to start to do some surface finish, some of the pieces, the parting lines. Make sure how we're going to grind those down a little bit to make a good surface prep. So we're just going to rough out the edges a little bit. Then we're going to put in the putty for it. We're going to put some putty on it to cover up the parting lines. Sorry. So we just get on top of the make sure some of the parting areas smooth together, buff it up a little bit so that the putty can actually stick on better. We're going to be sanding this all over the place anyway before we put on the resin coating. So in the next video that we're going to do how to do all the finishes and everything. So it's kind of just buffing that up a little bit, sanding it down a bit more. A rotary tool, a Dremel is a great way to work with models. You can get these pretty cheaply, $20 or so on Amazon. The cheapest ones with a rechargeable battery. Okay, so I think we're ready for putting now. Just kind of give it an overview, look at it, plan out how we're going to paint everything, all the details, what we need to cover, the putty. So, and start the putty process. There will be another video after this on how to paint and finish, so we were going to do that also. And again, these pieces will be painted separately, so we won't assemble them right away until the final assembly. Now for putty, we'll be using the Tamiya all-purpose general basic putty type. We tend to find the Japanese putty are a little bit better for use. You can also use like certain spackle compound or filler compound that you can find at hardware stores. Those also work great. So we just have to get that open up there. See that? It's a little bit pricier material if you can get your hands on it, but it does work out pretty good. They do sand down pretty good. A lot of people uses it. A lot of professional model kit builders, they get this stuff, like military skilled aeronaut builders and model kits. If you work with a lot of model kits, you probably know what this stuff will do. So we just kind of spread it out evenly, covering up all the different sections there. So we just kind of go over it. Again, we're not very precise on it. We're kind of just going to go over it in a larger area here. Just kind of spread it out. Because we are going to sand this down like crazy in a bit. Also, we kind of need to let this dry out for about 24 hours. So. And then they'll be applying different coats of putty, like one on top of the other to layer it out if you have the time. But for a quick build, or if you're doing a speed build, just kind of quickly cover it. Or for beginners, just kind of quick cover it over it. And the more kits that you build, you'll spend more time with it, and you'll do more of the layering process. What we used to do was just keep on like layering one layer, sand it down, put another layer on, sand it, put another layer on, sand it down a little more, until we get it nice and smooth. Because 3D models these kits that we work with, they tend to we tend to really overcoat them after with a lot of resin coatings, so we don't have to get it like super smooth because we're gonna do a lot of resin coating over it. So we'll just kind of cover up the crap we'll do. Okay, now we have all the putties all puttied up. So pretty soon we're going to move on to the next video that we're making. Will be more on the surface finishing and painting and weathering, and a bit more detail work on it on the next video. But there you go, this is the general assembly. So do subscribe. I hope you guys like the video. Thank you.